They never raised their voice. They never called you names. They never did anything you could point to and say, that was abuse. And that is exactly why it took you so long to leave. When most people think about toxic relationships, they imagine something obvious, shouting, controlling behavior that anyone watching could identify. Something that, if described to a friend, would immediately produce the response, you need to leave. But the covert narcissist relationship does not look like that from the outside. From the outside, it looks like devotion, like a partner who remembers every detail about you, who shows up when you are struggling, who tells you constantly how special you are. And from the inside, it feels like that too, at least at the beginning. What it also feels like, increasingly over time, is confusion, exhaustion, a nagging sense that something is wrong that you cannot name because everything appears to be fine. Today, we talk about how covert narcissists use the language and gestures of love, real love, love you recognize and respond to, as the primary mechanism of control. Because understanding this is what finally makes the confusion make sense. Love bombing, the foundation. Every relationship with a covert narcissist begins the same way. Intensity, attention unlike anything you have experienced before. They remember everything you mention in passing. They text first. They make plans. They look at you like you are extraordinary. They say things that make you feel more seen and understood than you have ever felt in your life. This is called love bombing, and it is not accidental. Whether the covert narcissist is consciously aware of what they are doing or not, this initial overwhelming investment serves a specific psychological function. It creates attachment faster than attachment would naturally form. It makes you feel chosen in a way that generates loyalty before trust has actually been earned. And most importantly, it establishes a reference point, a version of this person, warm, devoted, attentive, perfect, that you spend the rest of the relationship trying to get back to. The love bombing is not who they are. It is a recruitment process. And once the recruitment is complete, the relationship begins to change. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, in ways that are easy to explain away because the reference point of how wonderful things were is still so vivid in your memory. Conditional love as architecture. Once the love bombing phase ends, a new dynamic quietly establishes itself. Love in a healthy relationship is not something you earn. It is not something you can lose by saying the wrong thing, having the wrong need, or failing to respond in exactly the right way. It is simply there, reliable, not contingent on your performance. Love in a relationship with a covert narcissist is different, and the difference is almost imperceptible at first. You notice that warmth returns most reliably when you are agreeable, when you do not have needs, when you prioritize their comfort, when you are essentially easy. And warmth withdraws subtly, never dramatically, when you assert yourself, when you have a need that is inconvenient, when you express a perspective they disagree with, when you, in any way, become someone other than the perfectly understanding, completely available person they need you to be. You did not sign up for conditional love, but you absorbed its architecture anyway, because the conditions were never stated out loud. They were simply felt in the temperature of the room, in the quality of their attention, in the presence or absence of the warmth you had come to depend on. And gradually, without ever making a conscious decision, you began to manage yourself around their conditions, becoming smaller, more careful, more available, more agreeable, not because you were told to, but because love, even conditional love, feels better than its absence. Gifts as debt. The covert narcissist is frequently generous. This is one of the most confusing aspects of the dynamic, and one of the reasons it is so difficult to name. They remember your birthday with something thoughtful. They show up with your favorite food when you have had a bad day. They do things that, when you describe them to friends, sound like the actions of a wonderful partner. What does not translate in the telling is the invisible ledger. Because every gift, every gesture, every act of apparent generosity is being quietly recorded, not in a way you can see, but in a way you will eventually feel, the first time you do not reciprocate in the exact way that was expected, after everything I have done for you. 5 words that reveal the entire architecture. The generosity was never free. It was an investment with expected returns. And when the returns are not delivered to the precise specification and timeline the covert narcissist had in mind, the gifts become evidence in a case being built against you. Healthy love gives without keeping score. What you experienced was not generosity. It was a loan with invisible terms, an interest that compounded every time you failed to notice what was owned. Manufacturer dependency. One of the most sophisticated things a covert narcissist does, and the one most rarely discussed, is the deliberate or instinctive creation of dependency. It happens in layers. First, they make you feel uniquely understood by them, like they see you in ways nobody else does, like the connection you have is rare and irreplaceable. Then they quietly diminish your other connections, not aggressively, subtly. A comment about a friend's motivations, a suggestion that your family does not really understand you, a pattern of being most warm and available when you are most isolated. They position themselves as your primary emotional resource, the person you call when something goes wrong, the person whose opinion shapes your decisions, the person without whom your life begins to feel incomplete. By the time you recognize that you are dependent, and many people never fully recognize it while they are still inside the relationship, leaving feels not just painful but genuinely impossible. Because they have not just taken a place in your life, they have restructured your life around their presence. And the restructuring was done so gradually, so gently, with such apparent love, that it never felt like what it was. Love as punishment. Here is the mechanism that keeps the whole system running. Love, in a relationship with a covert narcissist, is not just used as a reward, it is used as a punishment, not through its presence, through its withdrawal. When you behave in ways they approve of, when you are agreeable, accommodating, emotional, available, and perfectly attuned to their needs, love flows, warmth flows. The relationship feels like the version you fell in love with. When you step out of line, when you express a need, set a boundary, have a perspective that contradicts theirs, or simply are not what they need you to be in a given moment, love withdraws, not dramatically, just a cooling, a distance, a quality of absence that you have learned to find more painful than any argument. And so you learn, without ever being explicitly taught, without ever being given a rule book. You learn what produces warmth and what produces cold, and you organize yourself accordingly. This is not love, this is conditioning. The difference between the two is that love does not require you to become less yourself in order to receive it. Why you stayed? This section is the most important one. Because if you have recognized your relationship in this video, you might be sitting with a question that has been quietly torturing you. Why did I stay? And the answer is not what you have been telling yourself. You did not stay because you were weak. You did not stay because you were stupid. You did not stay because something is fundamentally broken in you. You stayed because you were in love with a person who showed you, at the beginning, exactly who you needed them to be. And the person who appeared in those early months was real, in the sense that you experienced them, in the sense that the feelings they produced in you were genuine. You stayed because love, even complicated, confusing, painful love, creates attachment that does not simply dissolve because things become difficult. You stayed because every time you were on the verge of leaving, the warmth returned. Just enough, just long enough, to give you hope that the person from the beginning was still in there somewhere and could be reached if you just loved them the right way. You stayed because nobody told you that the confusion itself was a strategy, that the warmth and coldness were not random, that what you were experiencing had a name. Now you know the name. And knowing the name changes everything. Here is what I want you to understand before anything else. The love you gave in that relationship was real, even if theirs was complicated, even if theirs was conditional, even if theirs was, at its core, more about what you provided them than who you actually were. Yours was real, and that matters, because it means there is nothing wrong with your capacity to love. Nothing broken in your ability to connect deeply and give generously. What was missing was a boundary around that love, a recognition that love yours deserves to go somewhere it will be received without conditions, without invisible ledgers, without being used as a lever. You did not love wrong. You loved a person who was not able to receive love the way you gave it, and that is their limitation, not yours. The confusion you felt was not weakness. It was the natural response to something designed to confuse. Save this. Share it with someone who is still trying to understand why something that looks so much like love felt so much like pain.